Michigan survives Minnesota. Alex Orji throws a long pass, and it's intercepted. But don't give up on Alex yet. We'll discuss coming up next. Welcome to the Point a Minute show on Michigan football at the Voice of College Football, where we average one outstanding point for every minute of video. My name is Cliff. His name is Mac. Let's get into it. Once again, Michigan had a really great first half and a really bad second half, but nevertheless, they've won all their games except the one against Texas. They're calling Michigan's offense one-dimensional, and it seems like the coaches at Michigan have heard the critique, and now Alex Orji is throwing the ball more, but not with a lot of success. The question is, where's the real problem? The QBs, the wide receivers, the O-line, the running backs, what is going on here? But before we get into too much of that, let's back up just a little bit. We want to talk about Davis Warren. Davis Warren started at QB in the first two games, but he was pulled after the Arkansas State game. Actually, that was the first three games. I take that back. Why was Davis Warren pulled from being QB1?
Yeah, he was pulled from being the starter because of the 3 interceptions he threw against Arkansas State. He had underthrown balls that were picked off. He had situations where he didn't read the defense properly, and he just lost receivers in coverage. And that's going to be too much. I mean, you want to talk about a one-dimensional offense. You know, I'll gladly take a relatively efficient one-dimensional offense over an offense that's consistently turning the ball over. You know, one of the things that we saw in that second half against Minnesota was the defense getting tired in the second half, and that was because the offense couldn't sustain drives. Well, think of how much more difficult it would have been to sustain drives if you're turning the ball over, for one, but also how much more difficult it would have been on the defense to stay fresh if every couple of drives they have to go back out there because of a sudden change circumstance. And more often than not, those sudden change circumstances will back them up quite a bit into situations that, I mean, there were a couple of situations where they could have been in the shadow of their own end zone at that point, and that's not what you want to put a defense in, a situation you want to put a defense into. So that's why Alex Orji was given the start, and frankly, that still makes the most sense to me, despite what happened on Saturday against Minnesota.
All right. Well, before we get into that, what I want to ask you is there any advantage? Is there any improvement that Michigan gains by putting Davis Warren aside and bringing Alex Orji as QB1? Just by bringing him in, does that improve the game?
Yeah, so that's kind of what I was going to allude to. There was, you've got an issue where Michigan's offense is going to be one-dimensional in one way or another, or at least it's not going to be dynamic in one way or another. And you can be one-dimensional in the sense that you've got a quarterback that can throw, but he's throwing interceptions, and so the passing game is kind of a hit or miss sort of a thing, and when you miss, you really miss, and so that requires you to rely on your defense a lot more than you really should be. That kind of makes you one-dimensional because that means that you're almost entirely an all-or-nothing offense, and that requires you to rely a lot more on your defense. Or you can be one-dimensional in the fact that, you know, you can run the ball. You've got Alex Orji who can run the ball. You've got Donovan Edwards-ish. You've got Kalel Mullings. You know, you can run the ball, and that's great, but, you know, you can't throw it. Well, okay, you know, if you run the ball, at least you can try and get 3 or 4 yards of play. You can keep the offense on the field and then keep giving the defense some rest. And that's what bringing Alex Orji does for this offense. I still firmly believe that Michigan's win-loss ceiling is higher with Alex Orji as the starting quarterback, personally, because I think that the passing game can be taught. I mean, I think that that's something that he can learn. He can, that interception against Minnesota, that's a thing that I think can be fixed. Okay, you know, he can learn to read defenses a little bit better. He can understand what he's looking at a little bit better, and then he needs to gain confidence with throwing downfield for sure. There's definitely, you can see a lack of confidence when he throws further than, say, like 5 or 6 yards. He had a couple of passes that were actually, I mean, very, very well thrown balls, some very accurate passes to Colston Loveland a couple of times. There's definitely something there to build on. There's more of a foundation with Alex Orji's passing game than there is with Davis Warren. And the sole reason for that is the fact that when Alex Orji throws the ball, more often than not, it's incomplete, but at least it's not an interception. And actually against Minnesota, he threw a lot of completions, even though they were mid to short range completions. But that's something. That's something to build on. The one thing that I will say that I found kind of curious is that they didn't give him as many quarterback design runs. Why not? The quarterback design run is something that could really pull defenses out of position. That's something that they would then need to look at and say, okay, so the linebackers will have to cheat up a little bit, but which way are they going? Is it Orji is going to keep the ball? Is he going to throw the ball? Is he going to hand the ball off? That's some of that RPO offense that we would have liked to see with Alex Orji, but obviously the P's not working out so well right now. So we need to just figure out what we can do with Alex Orji on the ground. And you saw flashes of that too. He picked up a couple of third downs with his legs, 3rd down and 10 at one point he picked up with his legs in that first half. And that was brilliant. So there's something there. There's really a lot of good raw talent there and things that can be built on. We just didn't see that in the second half against Minnesota.
Yeah, one of the things I heard, I think from the announcers during the Minnesota game is that Alex Orji is a well-rounded athlete and that he could literally play any position on the field. Sometimes, though, the problem with that kind of athlete is getting them to settle in and focus on one position and master that position. It's almost like a jack of all trades, master of none.
Master of none, yeah.
Yeah, so the coaches really have to keep him focused on, no, you're the QB now. You must do that. And you would think, he is a strong guy. He's a tough guy. So I was surprised that there weren't more of those QB design runs, like you said. Now, we wanted to see Alex get his passing game going. And like you said, he tried that with Minnesota, mixed results. Michigan had 32 passing yards against USC, and now they've got 86 against Minnesota. A big jump there, but still not a ton of passing yards. I mean, it is almost 3 times as many passing yards, but still only 86.
Yeah, we saw a 300% improvement, guys. What are you complaining about?
So let's narrow that down a bit. What do you think is the issue with the passing game? I know you said that, these things can be taught. What specifically do you think needs to be taught to improve this passing game?
Well, I mean, look, I'm not a quarterback guru. I'm not a passing specialist. I remember watching Nickelodeon back in the day and Peyton Manning did these commercials for how to throw a football. And he would say, all right, first, get your feet set, push the ball back, push it back. I don't know, pull it back, wipe the windshield, and then flick the butter off your fingers. I don't know. That's about as fundamental an understanding I have of the quarterback position. What I will say though, just watching him play and watching Michigan's defense from sort of offense from sort of a tactical perspective. So in that first half, Michigan's running game did very well. They were very established. And then Minnesota makes the adjustments at halftime and says, okay, so Alex Orji isn't throwing the ball any longer than, say, 5 yards, and he's usually throwing it to the sides. It's not over the middle. So what can the defense do? They can just cheat up a little bit towards the line of scrimmage. If Alex Orji's not throwing it, chances are he's handing it off. Okay, so that's pretty simple to defend. I frankly don't understand why they didn't watch the USC game and think, okay, we're just going to do that anyway. I mean, at one point, it looked like Minnesota was actually respecting the passing game for Michigan, which is just kind of a bizarre thought right now. But that being said, what do I think can solve that issue then? From my perspective, and from what I've heard about, or from Sharon Moore about the way that they're practicing, he needs more practice throwing the ball downfield. He needs to gain confidence. And the only reason I can really think that he threw that interception against Minnesota is either, I mean, it was either an underthrown ball, which is a mechanics issue, or he didn't see the defender, which is a vision issue, or he didn't read the defense properly, which is a knowledge issue. So 2 of those things I think can be fixed. You can learn a defense, you can read a defense properly, you can watch film, you can study them, you can understand what they're doing and their movements. That's something that can be taught. A mechanics issue, you can teach mechanics through repetition, right? So during practice, they can tell him, okay, if you're going to throw a deep ball, throw it in such a way that it gives the receiver enough time to be able to adjust and come back to the ball, but don't make them come back to the ball too much, or at least let them put them in a position where they can reasonably go and get the ball. That's something that can be taught through repetition.
Right.
Okay, if it's whatever the third thing was where he just didn't see, vision. If he didn't see the defender, to me, that's a little harder to teach because I think vision is something that it comes with mental clarity. And, there's a lot of things happening around you as a quarterback. You've got, 6'7", 5 bajillion pound linemen all crushing into each other, and 4 of them want to kill you. And there's 4 of them that are trying to keep you alive, and maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. So you got to keep track of these guys while keeping your eyes downfield to see those receivers. And then you have to keep track of the linebackers and the safeties and where are they playing. That's a little bit more difficult. And I feel like that comes with maturation. And that's not something I think can be taught. I think that if you become more mature as a quarterback, you become more mentally clear. You can slow the game down in your mind so that you can process these things a lot faster. And if that's what's going on with Alex Orji, then this is Alex Orji for the season. If it's a mechanics issue, that can be taught. If it's reading the defense, that's a knowledge issue that can be taught. If he's just not able to slow the game down in his mind and identify where everyone is within reason, he's not Superman, then that's an issue. And that could potentially mean that Michigan just doesn't have a downfield passing attack for the rest of the season. And depending on how much the offensive line gels and the running game can save them, and the defense, frankly, Michigan's ceiling of 9-3 looks pretty reasonable. That seems like probably what's going to happen without a downfield passing attack.
All right, now you think that they should keep Alex Orji as QB1, that they shouldn't even bother to try to change it up now. We know that Tuttle, I believe, is still injured. I think he was on the field, or not on the field. He was on the sidelines, but he was not dressed. You want to make the case that they should keep Alex Orji at QB1, make that case.
Your ceiling's higher with Alex Orji. Okay, I mean, you can't put Davis Warren in there. He's turning the ball over too much, and that's going to kill you. That's a game-ending mistake, especially if you make it 3 times. So that's not something that you can come back from too many times in a row. What Alex Orji does is he presents at least a little bit of a safety net. Like, he's not turning the ball over as much. That one interception against Minnesota was fairly egregious, but that's the downfield pass. That's something that can be worked on, like we just talked about, as long as it's mechanics or knowledge. He's still the best shot I think Michigan has at going 9-3. He still gives them the higher ceiling because of his legs, because of his athleticism, because he was actually making some pretty solid decisions during the Minnesota game. In fact, whether to run, whether to hand it off, where to throw the ball. I mean, his decision making was actually fairly on point, especially during that first half. The problem is that the running game is not being run in a complementary way to the personnel right now. And the reason I say that is because there wasn't a lot of quarterback design runs. There wasn't a lot of situations where they baited the linebackers to play a certain way and then switch things up. The running game really isn't all that creative right now. They had an end around, I think, once, and that didn't really go anywhere. That was sniffed out pretty quickly. So they need to get a little bit more creative with the play calling. And I understand that they can't open things up too much because that's, a personnel issue. Like they're a brand new team, they're a brand new team. But still, just the very fact that Alex Orji has the legs and the athleticism and the toughness, and they've got Khalil Mullings, who is also a battering ram, and they've got Donovan Edwards, who I understand hasn't been playing that great, but he is a weapon. He is a weapon if he is used properly. That trio right there represents the best shot Michigan has, in my opinion, at going 9-3. So yeah, that's why I would keep Alex Orji at quarterback, especially because if the downfield passing attack is a mechanics or a knowledge issue, that can be taught and improved on. And it looks like there's already a foundation in place there to potentially do that. So I think if some changes are made or things get better, they could actually be in some of these tougher games later in the season. But at the very least, I think Alex Orji is the best shot at 9-3.
All right, let's leave it right there then. What do you think about what we think? Let us know in the comments. You can find us on X. My handle is at DAWG Team Rivalry. Mac's handle is at B1G Team Rivalry. Stop by and give us a follow over there. If you want more great analysis on college football, check out all the shows right here on Michigan Football at the Voice of College Football. You can also check out Mac and I on the Big Ten Team Rivalry Show on our YouTube channel. Monday nights, 8 p.m. We'll be live. We'll see you there. Mac, take us out.
This is the Point of Minute Show on the Voice of College Football.